All right, guys, welcome back to the NLF Coaching Podcast. Today we are joined by Michaela Paramaki. So, guys, Michaela is someone that I've known through Instagram. She's a newly OCB pro in figure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. She is currently in prep for the Yorton Cup. She is also a full-time doctor of physical therapy and also a bodybuilding coach online. So, Michaela, talk to us a little bit about everything that you do and kind of how you got started in bodybuilding.
Yeah. So, I got started in bodybuilding once I was done with my collegiate track and field career. I was a pole vaulter, and I remember so I had been training with athletes and stuff. And once I was done with my athletic career, I started training at like the normal gyms like at my university. And I just had people like coming up to me all the time, like being like, "Oh, are you a bodybuilder?" And I think just because I have, like this natural like shape to myself, I have wide shoulders, and I've had cap delts since I was like, I don't know, like 5. Like I just kind of that was just like a genetic thing. So I think that I just kind of looked like one without really trying. I was just kind of figuring out like how to lift on my own, like not for athletics. And I just had people like asking me if I was a bodybuilder, like all the time. And I was like, like maybe I'll try it, like I needed something else, like I dedicated all this time towards, being an athlete. Like that was my identity. And I was kind of searching for that new thing. I dabbled in powerlifting a little bit too, but I ended up like, really enjoying the training for bodybuilding and like watching my physique transform. And yeah, I just kind of fell into it, it just kind of worked out. And then within like 6 months of deciding that I, was going to do bodybuilding, I just was like, you know what, 0 to 100, let's do a show. And it's just kind of been going ever since.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. I think so many people get into bodybuilding for the same reasons. It's like if you're an athlete, you always like that. You have to have something to be competitive for, and then it's like you need a new outlet when your career stops. Sport you do.
Absolutely.
For me, okay. Out of that, I still enjoyed like the training side of things, and it's good to have something that gives you purpose to like follow a routine every day. Because I'm definitely a big believer in like the routine side of things with health and fitness, regardless of if you compete or not. But it is nice to have a driving force of a why behind what you're doing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being an athlete, like I think that like that's just your main goal. So then when you're done with it, it's like wait, like what's my next goal? Like what do I do next? So definitely bodybuilding took that for me.
Yeah, I find there's a lot of things that correlate between like team sports and bodybuilding. Even though like bodybuilding can be more of like an isolated, individualized sport, there's still so many like of the disciplines that transfer over. And I think people that really enjoy like high level competitive sport often really mesh well with the bodybuilding because of the structure, the routine, the discipline, and I find that that's like they just kind of translate so well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of bodybuilding, how long were you training before you started competing?
I'm gonna be so honest. Like when I decided that I wanted to like do bodybuilding, I would say like I started like I would say like 6 months. Like I kid you not. Like when I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna start training for bodybuilding. Like as soon as I decided that, I was already like reaching out to like a local coach and being like, hey, like, can I just do a show? I had no knowledge of like, like needing to like put on muscle and like build for a little bit. I just like, I'm going to do bodybuilding. Let's compete. So it happened all like very, very fast. I didn't really have much of like an off season at all. It was probably like 6 months and then I was cutting for a show. So, and you can tell too, like looking back at my first show, I was pretty tiny compared to where I'm at now.
Yeah, I mean it's always progressions. I always tell people like you got to get that first show under your belt just to kind of get some exposure, see if you like it.
Oh yeah.
And then the rest is history because most of the time I feel like people generally get the bug for it. It's like once you do one, you're kind of addicted.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad I did it that way. I know it probably would have been smarter to, like take, at least a year to grow a little bit, but that was honestly what like hooked me. Like I truly like loved show day. I know a lot of people were like, you know what, I like the, process of bodybuilding, but like I hated show. Like I loved show day. Like I was like, this is it for me. Like I'm going all in, like this is it. So I'm really glad that it worked out that way. And I didn't take a year to grow just because I think that was what made me fall in love with it.
So how early on did you realize that you had like good genetics for the sport when you first got in? Like when your mindset shifted from, all right, I'm not training anymore. I'm gonna be a bodybuilder. How quickly did you realize you had like good genetics for the sport?
I think I always knew. ever since I was like little, like I just had muscle, even if I wasn't training to sometimes like, I didn't even really start training until I was, like in high school, like taking it a little bit more seriously, but I always just had muscle. My mom was in 2 Olympic trials and she was like a 4-time national speed skating champ. So she was like already like super genetically gifted and she was, also like jacked. Same with my dad. My dad was a college football player. So I think just having them as my parents, I was already set up to kind of be successful in that. So I knew that like I was able to put on muscle easily. So it was just something that I think I like fell into. It was like, you know what, like I already can put on muscle well. Like I think that, let's see what I can do with this.
Yeah. So you've been in prep for a good amount of a whole year, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we started prep in January.
Okay.
So
And then you're prepping for the Yorton Cup.
Yep. And then I will likely be doing Ben Weeders after that too. So it'll be a long, long season.
Yeah, long season. So have you been able to maintain that? Because that generally, um, I like people's preps to be 20 to 24 weeks, sometimes longer, but that's good. Like, I mean, you've been prepping the entire year. So have you been able to maintain that? Is that something that like is prep kind of one of those things you can manage very easily? Like is staying leaner, is that something that genetically your body handles well? Or has that been a
Yeah.
struggle?
I would say genetically my body handles it really well. Like I'm, in prep and I'm still eating well over like 2,500 calories. Like I feel great. I think I started to not feel super good like for my last show. Maybe like a month out, I was like, yeah, like I'm feeling it. But for the most part, I do think I have a genetic advantage where like my, like set point of like body fat where like my body still functions well is probably at a lower body fat percentage than others. So I am grateful for that. Also too, Cliff has taught me a lot about like stress management and like the stress bucket, and there's like physical stress and emotional stress and mental stress and all these things, and just making sure that, we're managing stress throughout prep. And I think that has also been a very huge factor in me like feeling well. Like I have an aura ring, so I'm able to, kind of tell like if my body is like if I've had more physical stress or more mental stress and seeing how it like I feel the next day. So I've been able to kind of like track that and, make sure that I take time for myself mentally if I need that. Physically, it's like I will take like a day or two off of training. It's not going to kill you if I really need that. And I think that that has been a huge factor in me feeling good throughout this whole year because it's a long season and you can't just like keep killing yourself over and over again because we're human, we can only handle so much. So I think a big factor has been managing that stress.
Yeah, stress management is huge, especially in physique, competitive physique, like bodybuilding. Like I think that's one of the areas that's are largely overlooked when it comes to contest prep because you're putting yourself through strenuous training and dieting, cardio throughout the year. It's important to listen to your body and know when to kind of push the pedal and when to pull back a little bit and make sure that you're
Yeah,
listening to things.
absolutely. And I don't know if like you felt this as an athlete too, but I know for me, and especially I think the stress management has like been more of a recent thing. But I know when I was growing up, like everyone was like, oh, like you got to grind, like who cares, like just keep pushing it. So I think that that has been my mindset for the longest time ever. And then working with Cliff Wilson as my coach, like he did a really good job of like helping me like step back and like actually listening to my body, because I feel like a lot of like especially the old school coaches, like they don't think that way, especially for athletes, and it's just keep grinding, keep going.
Yeah, I do think there's been an interesting transition because like our parents' generation and older, like there's like been this you got to grind mindset, work, and then the more current generation is kind of the opposite, where it's like, all right, let's pay more attention to our mental health and stress factors and things like that, and listen to our bodies. And it's an interesting bridge the gap where you still have to be able to dig in and push yourself out of like your comfort zone and do hard things. And that's there's absolutely merit to that. But I think
Yes.
there's a lot more awareness around stress management and psychological mental health components of being an athlete that I think a lot of like younger coaches are kind of bringing to the game now, which has been really cool to see. Because I think when the two are bridged well, when you're paying attention to your physical and your mental, you're still willing to grind. Like you can bridge those properly. I do think it makes like the perfect happy medium for an athlete.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know you've had some of the allegations with your genetics about your natural status. What has that been about?
So first I will say, like, I am very good with a camera. Like, I'm posting my videos when like I have a pump and like, I'm obviously very lean right now and vascular and stuff. So I will say like a little bit of that is just, being good with the camera. But yeah, for the most part, I think that just to like I have a very good structure. Like again, like I'm built with very wide shoulders just naturally, and I think that that's something that people get confused with. Like they see me and just like my frame, and not a lot of girls look like that as it is. Um, so like I look bigger than some girls that are on steroids. So they're like, oh, if she's bigger than so and so who's on gear, like she must be on gear. But in reality, like the best natural physiques like are still very very impressive, and like are more impressive than people who are on taking steroids. And I don't think that people like realize that there is a level of natural bodybuilding where natural bodybuilders still look really really freaky. Like I think people think that natural bodybuilders like, oh, like it kind of has like a bad rap where you don't like actually like look that good, but the best physiques still look really good and really crazy. So I think that's where people get it kind of confused.
Yeah, there's a large population of people in natural bodybuilding that I think have like crazy genetics, and it's only growing as the sport gets more and more
Oh
popular.
yeah, absolutely. It's getting a lot more mainstream. And like I'm seeing like these girls who are popping up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy.
Yeah, I started competing back in 2019, and from like I can remember the first couple of shows I had exposure to now, like the level of competition, it's unreal. It's getting better and better, and it's almost like I look at some of my clients, I'm like, dude, they got better genetics than I do. I need to hang it up and just
I
coach.
know. I know. I've like had a few clients too who have like applied to work with me and I'm like, dang girl, okay, like, all right.
No, it's a good thing
But
though. It's great for the sport.
hmm
It's good to see like so many high level physiques entering the sport and making it more and more competitive. And I just
yeah.
think social media has done a great job of like obviously there's pros and cons of social media, but I do think one of the
hmm
benefits of it is like the exposure it's given to the sport. Because I think in the past, like I look at like a decade ago, not that many people knew like about the OCD and things like that, but those things have all
hmm
grown. I think
Oh yeah,
one
absolutely.
because of the quality of the federations, but also two, I think the exposure that social media has gotten to the sport. More people are having access to information on how to do the sport naturally, right? Versus in the
hmm
past, like people only knew about like the Arnolds and stuff like that. They didn't know that
Right.
there was other ways you could go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I competed, like I competed in the PNB. I don't even think I knew that the OCB existed. I had like no clue. And now I feel like, like the OCB is it. Like for natural bodybuilding, like it's like at least like the way that I think about it, it's like OCB for like natural and then like, like NPC IFBB if you're enhanced. Like I feel like the OCB is really like taken off along with social media.
Yeah, it's a great organization. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of it for 7 years now, and it's
Oh
a
wow.
very family friendly atmosphere. It's very welcoming to the athletes, and I think that's what the big draw is. Is like you
Mm-hmm.
hear about certain shows like being very cutthroat and people backstage not being friendly, but I've never encountered that personally in the OCB, which is I think a big draw for myself, and I know my clients have always resonated that as well, and I think that goes a long ways with people because bodybuilding in itself is a very isolating sport at times. So like
Mm-hmm.
when you get the opportunity to compete, like it is nice to be able to network and make friends with the people you're sharing the stage with. I think that's a special
Mm-hmm.
part of the process.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, when I competed with the OCB, I was blown away by just like how nice everybody was and like how helpful. Like like I was nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. I like, like I don't remember who it was, but like I, pulled some aside and they like were able to like, just explain to me how like the T walk was gonna work and like where to like stand and like that was very meaningful. Just like little things like that. And the show promoter was amazing. I just felt like the entire atmosphere of the OCB, it's just different. So it's been awesome to be a part of the OCB. So,
Yeah, for sure. So I want to talk to you a little bit about like the social media side of things a little bit more. I know you obviously have a big following on your social medias, and that's great. It's good exposure for you and your business, I'm sure. So how do
hmm
you handle like the pressures and comparison game of social media? Because that's a conversation I have with clients quite often. Is so many people get caught up in looking at other people's process and where they're at in their journey and forget to focus
hmm
on their own. I think that's the negative side that social media brings. Like we're always seeing like the highlights of other people. And I think
yep.
when it comes to contest prep, like I always recommend to my clients, like if things are making you nervous or giving you self-doubt, like you can mute pages or just get off social media altogether. So how do you handle that personally
Yeah,
with your body?
I have done the same thing. Like honestly, when I go on social media, like I try to limit my time of just like scrolling to a minimum. Like if I'm going on social media, either I'm like posting or I'm like, looking for some type of like inspiration for my own posts because it's, like in bodybuilding, like it's literally like so subjective and it literally is like a game of comparison. It truly is like we are going on stage and we are being compared against everyone else who's up there. So it's very easy to just fall into the comparison game. But I think that honestly, if you get too far into it, like that is a fast track to just like burn yourself out. If you are constantly, worried about other people, it takes the fun out of it. Like I've, been there and like I will be in the gym just being like, oh my gosh, like my back isn't as good as hers. Like I need to, you know what I mean? It's just the negative emotions again that goes into like the stress bucket, like that, causes extra stress and it's not fun and, it can really like derail not like your progress, but like over time, like I think that it's easy to just kind of like lose the love for bodybuilding because you need to do it for yourself because there will always be someone who is coming up who's going to be bigger and better and you really truly just need to worry about yourself and whatever way to do that, like you got to do it. Like I've muted pages, I've just taken a break from social media, um just because the comparison game isn't healthy and it truly is like your own journey. So just kind of coming back to that and reminding yourself of that and even doing like the positive self-talk, like all that stuff does truly help. It sounds silly, but it does.
No, yeah, 1,000%. I always tell my athletes there's a huge difference between liking to compete and liking bodybuilding. And I think the foundation of every athlete needs to be a love for bodybuilding itself. And then like as a byproduct of loving that process, prep is like the icing on the cake. But I think you need to learn to love the training, the lifestyle before you even consider jumping into a contest prep. I always tell people, if the only thing we're working towards is a trophy, then we're kind of like, what's the point? Like I think bodybuilding can
that's
add
a short career.
Bodybuilding can add a lot of things to your life if you get invested into the process. I think it can improve your personal life, your career. Like it can add a lot of disciplines and structure to so many other areas of your life. And that's where I feel like people really need to dig into like what their why is behind competing. Like, yeah, you're going to get on stage for 5 minutes, but like you're investing years of time, effort, finances into this sport. There needs to be a bigger draw than just a trophy.
Yeah, than just winning.
Like on a shelf, and you're not really going to ever really pay attention to it. But like, what can you get from bodybuilding? What can you gain from it? And so, what I think is so important, and I always try to remind people that should be your focus, is like, how can this elevate my life, not take away from it? And then when those things are aligned and your values with why you're doing this are aligned, then I think everything else kind of sorts itself out and the process becomes more fun. But I'd say so many people get caught up in the comparison game with social media and just looking at what are other people doing and why don't I look this way, and say, all right, well, if we can channel that out and just focus on our why and why we're doing this and why we love it, then the rest kind of just takes care of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually really like that explanation. And that is so true. If you're just doing it for a trophy, like like I can tell, like, especially when like a client applies to work with me, I can even sometimes tell by their, like their questions and like what their like goals are. Like I can tell based off of those things, if there's someone who's like truly loves it, if they're enjoying the process and they, like the routines and the meal prepping and the training and all that stuff versus like, I just want to, like I want to win. I want to get, it's like, okay, we'll have to work on that a little bit because I think that could be a very short journey because it's going to, and probably most likely end in disappointment. But if you truly love the process, that's when you can keep grinding and keep going and you can have setbacks and you can have, tough losses. But if you love it, you can keep coming back to it.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you love the process of bodybuilding and you love the lifestyle and the structure and the disciplines that it gives you, you can be okay with the placement on stage not being what you might want it to be, because at the end of the day, only one person's going to come away with first place. So like if your sole validation of competing and getting on stage is just for a trophy, then it can be a very unfulfilling sport. Like I think we truly need to, I think more people need to hone in on like what is bodybuilding adding to my life outside of the stage? Because when those things, like I said, when those things are aligned, then the process is so much more enjoyable and you put so much less pressure on yourself with the outcome on stage. I think that's like putting realistic expectations in place with your clients becomes so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And even too, like in prep, like, yes, like prep is hard, but like some people are like, oh my gosh, like I hate prep. Like this, like just sucks. Like this is so grueling. And like sometimes in my head, I'm like, really? Like I love it. Like this is so fun. Like, we're seeing changes each week. And like, I think that, like you truly do need to like absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's so important to be living the lifestyle before you decide to do a contest prep, because truly, if we're living a bodybuilding lifestyle for the majority of the time year round, I'm not saying you need to be perfect. Like I go on date nights with my wife and things like I'm not 100% on my diet year round unless I'm in prep. But in the off season, have those. If you're doing your check-ins, you're doing your cardio, you're doing your protein, you're doing training, you're logging things. Like when you're paying attention to those habits and you're following those disciplines, then contest prep simply just becomes the same thing with less food. Like it's not as much culture shock. I think when people apply for coaching and they've not been bodybuilding, they don't have the habits in place, I generally try to advise on pushing a show date back until we've had a few months working together on being a bodybuilder before we try to be a competitive bodybuilder, right? Because there's a big difference between like a bodybuilding lifestyle and prep. And I think they should kind of be in a place where they're aligned before you decide to get on the stage. And once you're in that place, then you can navigate a successful prep, and the outcome on stage is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had clients too, where it's like, they want to be a bodybuilder. And we've done that same thing where we like work on like what lifestyle changes need to happen in order for it to happen. And then they like realize like, oh shoot, this isn't for me, but at least we like figured it out beforehand than, like just starting a prep and being like, have it be a disaster and having them hate the sport and then just, like reject it altogether.
Yeah, and I think that's an important conversation to have with people up front. And there's nothing wrong with competing not being for you. Like at the end of the day, natural bodybuilding has a lot of really healthy habits that can be implemented into just a general lifestyle client. So there's not a huge overlay of the difference of the two other than the rigidness of nutritional side of things potentially. So it's like there's nothing wrong with getting into the process and deciding that it's not for you. And I think that's an important thing to be able to identify and be okay with, because I think people see things on social media and they're like, oh, I've got to do this or look this way. It's like, yeah, but you also can't force it. Like if it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can still like enjoy like the bodybuilding like lifestyle and like never compete. Like you do not have to compete. If you absolutely like hate prep and hate all of it, like don't do it. You don't have to.
Yeah, I have plenty of friends that are jacked and they just love training and they look like bodybuilders and have more muscle than I do, but they don't have the desire. And it's like I always respect people that have that like ability to just come in and eat right and train and just enjoy life. Like there's that side of things too, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Absolutely.
So transitioning away from that a little bit, I wanted to kind of dive into like the training side of things for you. So what, for working with Cliff, obviously I know he's a big volume guy. What does your training look like? How many hours are your sessions usually? What's like the training volume look like in your week?
Yeah, so right now we're trying to build up my limbs. I have very long limbs, so my arms and my legs are what we're really trying to like build up. So I'm hitting arms and legs twice a week. It is definitely higher volume, but I mean, truly like over and over, like Cliff, at least to me, has like proven that like he really knows what he's talking about. So I am trusting the process. I'm getting stronger each week. Even still like in prep, like I'm still getting stronger and I'm recovering well. I think that, like if volume was like too high, like he would bring it down. But like for me, as long as like, like my stress is managed, I'm sleeping well, like I'm eating well, like his volume is like not unrecoverable. So I'm, like we're pushing volume and I'm getting stronger and yeah, it's been good. I'm doing lifting 5 times a week. My sessions are probably like an hour and a half. I do a little bit more filming or like, talking to the gym will take a little bit longer, but I'd say an hour and a half. And to me, it's very doable. And I've been seeing great progress. And actually like a year ago, we needed to bring up my back. Like my lats were not what they were now. And it was so like just heavy back focus, high volume. And like now I feel like my back is like, one of my better features. So Cliff he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's very smart. So your training has evolved. So did you work with Cliff originally, or did you have a different prep coach before him?
So my first prep coach when I, was young and didn't really know what I was doing, he was just like he was a local person. I don't remember what the training was at all. It was probably like just some like normal bro split. I actually transitioned to Cliff, I think after I got my pro card. It was like right before the Natural Olympia, just because, like the local coach, like he was just, like doing it for fun. Like he didn't like take it super seriously. And I was like, I want to have like the best coach for the Natural Olympia. So I was with like that other coach for such a short period of time. I don't really remember. But before that, I was very much training like just for, sports. And I was, doing a lot of like squat, bench, dead, and like sandbag work and plyometrics and that kind of stuff. So I've honestly been with Cliff like pretty much my entire bodybuilding career. So like his training style is kind of like all I've known.
Yeah. No, it's great. When you have good camaraderie with the coach, I always think that that's the biggest thing with finding the right coach, just who you jive with and what philosophies you agree with and what works for you. And when you find someone great, Cliff definitely does great work. He's a inspiration in the industry and somebody that I know a lot of people look up to.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's awesome that you guys have had the success you guys have had, and look forward to seeing you guys at the Orton. Yeah, so I wanted to transition into some lifestyle things too. So I know you're a doctor of physical therapy. So not only are you coaching and in prep for the Orton this year, but you're also working a full-time job as a physical therapist.
I am,
So
yeah.
talk to me about like what your routine in a day looks like and how you manage all the things you're juggling right now. Because I think that's a big part of like taking on a contest prep that people get nervous about is how do I manage my schedule and prioritize these things while still being successful in my career and personal life and things of that nature.
Yeah. So it has been definitely like a struggle to like, I graduated college and then, figuring out like a real job, like all within the last couple years, and then building like my coaching business. I think I'm still like working on like the work-life balance. But for the most part, I just need to make sure that every day is structured. Like I need to go to bed at the same time. I need to wake up at the same time. I have to prep all of my meals like, a week in advance, and just make sure that like I am setting myself up for success during the week. Because even if things are like off by a couple hours, then like I don't have time to really make up for it. Like then I'll be going to bed late and then I'm missing out on sleep. So it's just I need to have structure. I need to have routine. I'm very, very lucky living with the people that I do. I'm living with one of my girlfriends from physical therapy, right from physical therapy school, and she knows how busy I am. So she'll help me sometimes. Like she'll help me with meal prep. She'll like wash my dishes if I'm like, hey girl, like I'm stressed. Like can you do like I have people in my corner that have been like very helpful, just because at this point in my life, things are super busy. I don't know if I can sustain this for like a super long period of time, like for years and years, but I know like this is sustainable right now and I can do it. I eventually would like to have a little bit more free time, but I just know that, I have some big goals this year and I can handle it now. And I'll hopefully be able to have a little bit more of a work-life balance later on. But I know that this year, just for coaching and competing, like this is important. So I'm willing to make a little bit more, sacrifices to, my personal life right now. Because I know I'll have time for that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever you're in contest prep, I always say that's like when I'm the most dialed in and productive is because you're just so ultra self-aware of like your routine and time management because you have to be like to fit in time for cardio, training, getting enough sleep, all those
Yep.
things. There's
Posing, all of it.
and all of us are doing this as a hobby. Like we all have like careers outside of just bodybuilding for the most part. So it's how do we fit this into our lifestyle and make it sustainable? It's always like it's a juggling match, right? You're trying to balance all these things, and it's we're adding this into a full-time job and social life and things like that. So finding a way to navigate all those things. But I always think that's it's a good growth phase, right? Like you'll learn so many things about yourself and what you're capable of when you're in contest prep.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I don't have time for all this, and then you get into prep and you find a way to make time. It's like, okay,
I know.
maybe I
One
haven't
thing
worked.
my dad has always said, he's like, if you want something done, like give it to a busy person. Cause like someone who's busy and like has a lot on their plate, like they know how to be efficient. Like you have to be efficient. And like it is crazy. Cause like when I, really got into this, like with coaching and taking on more and more clients and working full time, I was like, I don't know how I can like do a prep with how much I'm doing right now already. And then I just was like, you know what, like screw it. Like I'm just gonna go for it. And like somehow I found time, like if you care enough, you'll find a way. You'll find a way.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think it's an important conversation to have with yourself. It's like, how important is this to me before I get into it? You can always prioritize things. Like everybody's busy, but if you want to make something happen, you definitely can. And I think putting yourself through a contest prep for a bodybuilding show would teach you some lessons like that nothing else can.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say though too, I do have one day a week, usually Saturdays, where like I don't do anything. Like I don't like touch client check. Well, right, eventually, like I'll have to when I have like clients competing. But like right now, like no one's competing anytime soon. So like Saturday is like my day where like I just do something like fun for myself. So that's like hanging out with my roommates or like visiting with my family, like whatever, like something that like makes me truly happy like outside of all of this. And I think that like having at least one day or like something that you do that like brings joy to your life, that also like kind of like help boost your spirits and like keep you going when you are super busy and prep and doing all that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think when you're in this industry as a coach or as an athlete, it is important to have like a day where you just like you just completely disconnect and have a life, because it is so demanding. And when you care about your clients, like you're pouring so much of your energy into them because you want to see them. Like I get more nervous for my clients than I do for my own. Like
I know.
It is what it is. I know I've given it a good effort. Like I've done the best I can, but like when you're in control of somebody else's outcome to an extent, you're like, whew, like this is nerve wracking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I know.
It can be an emotional roller coaster when you're coaching.
Oh, absolutely. I have a couple clients right now that like, again, like you never know what's gonna happen, but like they're looking like really good, and like I'm over here doing their check-ins. I'm getting like giddy. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, so it's awesome. Like just being a coach and like being able to invest in your clients, and it makes it more fun too. Like I think that if I like hated coaching, like it wouldn't it suck the joy out of my life a little bit more. But if you truly love it, it doesn't really feel like work. So I think that's been able to like help me keep me going too.
Yeah, absolutely. So in regards to like your personal bodybuilding career, I know you're prepping for the York right now. Like what is your long-term vision with bodybuilding for yourself?
So I see myself doing this for a very long time, and like we were talking about before, like winning is, not everything, and you truly do need to enjoy the process, which I do. But I think that a good long-term goal would be to eventually win, like some type of world title, like I think that would be, like way down the road, like I would want, like eventually be like a Jordan Cup champion, God willing. So yeah, I just want to continue to compete and continue to grow and trust the process. And if it works out and I can eventually like walk away a world champion one day, awesome. And if I don't, that's cool too, because I do truly love bodybuilding. But yeah, I'm here for the long term. And I just love the process and want to keep just pushing the natural limits and seeing what my body can do. So
yeah, I think you're in a great spot. Whenever your love for the process is stronger than the outcome, I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah, obviously, like I want to win, but if it doesn't happen, like I'll be okay with that too, because I do love it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to be, because when you're putting so much time and effort into something, it's nice to just like, it's not something you're forcing, you're truly passionate about it, so it doesn't necessarily feel like work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a couple questions from our listeners that I wanted to run by you. So this one is from a female. So in terms of when you first got into bodybuilding, like your approach to things, like what advice would you give to a first-time competitor, for a female looking to get into just natural bodybuilding in general? Like what should they look to do, like starting out? Like what's your advice there?
So my biggest piece of advice would be to get a good coach. I feel like right now, like again with social media, there's pros and cons to all these things. There's a lot of coaches out there that can be very good salesmen, and they can put a lot of really like smart information out there and use these big words, and then they'll charge a crap ton, and they're in it more for like a payday than truly like the clients. And I have seen people's like walk away from bodybuilding with a horrible experience, like partially because of a coach that doesn't care. So I would say like the biggest thing is finding a coach that truly cares about them as a client and wants them to succeed. And that's hard to find, but I know like myself and like Cliff Wilson, and it seems like you, like there are obviously good coaches out there. So just doing your research and finding a good coach, and I think that will be like the number one to having a good experience and a successful season. And then two, just like trusting the process. Like natural bodybuilding is grueling, and you need to be good at delayed gratification if you want to be good at natural bodybuilding, because you have the newbie gains, but then it takes a long time, and there could be year after year where you don't even really like see much progress, because you're at that, like with natural bodybuilding, like you're like putting on like ounces of muscle tissue at a time, and you don't really see it for a long time. So you need to be very good at practicing delayed gratification, but just trust the process, hang in there, train hard, and yeah, it's rewarding if you stick with it long enough.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think one point I want to highlight off what you said there is like just trusting the process and enjoying what you're doing, because yes, bodybuilding is a very long-term game, and I think we look too far in the future, we can almost psych ourselves out. It's like, what am I doing this for, right? Because fires can sometimes feel so slow, and sometimes like when you've been doing it for a while, you don't have those new gains anymore, and it does. You're like scratching and clawing to try to get any ounce of tissue added onto your physique as possible, and sometimes it can almost feel like you're spinning your wheels. But I think if you keep your focus on your day to day and enjoying what you're doing in your process, and all that stuff sort of just tends to take care of itself.
Yeah.
And long term, when you look back on it, you're like, wow, like this phase I went through was teaching me something.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've like said to clients too that have, like asked me that same question is just like, I don't even know if I'm like putting on muscle anymore. And it's just like, you can't even really worry so much about like, am I putting on muscle, as just like, am I putting myself in an environment to like, put on muscle? Like it goes back to the basics. Like, am I eating well? Am I sleeping well? Am I managing my stress? And like doing all of those things to like put yourself in as optimal of an environment as possible to put on muscle. You just need to trust your body. Like just trust your body to put on muscle as fast as it's, capable of doing. Just do everything that you can and just trust.
Yeah, I love that point about putting yourself in an environment to check the boxes and do those things. I think if your focus is on putting yourself in the right situation, putting a lot of effort into what you're trying to achieve, and just controlling the circumstances that are in your control, that's all you can do. And at the end of the day, if you consistently do that for a very long time, like that's natural bodybuilding in a nutshell.
Yep, that's it. You just summed it up. That's the definition.
Yeah, you're a robot to the process for a really long time. And then at some point, when you've been doing it for a long, long time, you can look back and go, okay, we've made some progress. But I think we do have to have that like day-to-day mindset of just like honing in and being a robot to it a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even too, like when you're like, like a building phase, like, like you have a little bit more fat on you. So it's like hard to, like see the muscle tissue that's going on. And even like when I started prep, like I got still in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, like what if I haven't even put on any muscle since my first show, and I'm just going to cut down and look the exact same, and just, like all these things going through your head. And then, it has been 7 years, and like I did cut down, and I think I posted it online. It's like a side by side, and it's like, wow, like that's crazy. But you don't see it, you don't see it until you do like do another prep or like do a cut, and it's like, oh shoot, like okay, like I did do that. But you have to just kind of trust the process, because especially when you are in the off season, you don't see it really.
Yeah, that's why I think quality check-in pictures are so important, because you do want to have those to look back on, especially when you start getting that mid growth phase where you're not as lean as you'd like to be maybe, and tissue doesn't really show up when quite as much when you have a little bit higher body fat percentage. So it kind of messes your head a little bit. So it is good to have those reference points to look back on and be like, okay, this is where I was at 3 years ago. Look at the body composition improvements from maybe I'm at a similar body weight or maybe even leaner this prep, but a lot better quality body composition and much larger, even though you might potentially be lighter as you get better at dieting down and getting leaner. Because I do think that's a big part of it too, and kind of going back to the stress management, is as you get better at managing the highs and lows of a contest prep, you're able to diet better and get more conditioned, because you're just better at managing the process. And things don't stress you out as much because you've done them so much. And when you're living that routine year round and you decide to do a contest prep, it's not a big stressor, because you're like, all right, I'm doing the same thing I was doing in the off season. I'm just doing it with less food and some less energy, maybe a little more caffeine.
Right. Yeah, those are some really good points, especially on like the progress pictures. Like I have clients who are like, oh, I like didn't like I'll get clients where like they'll get a little bit like lazy once I'm progress pictures, and I gotta remind them, it's like, hey, like these are important. Like I know it's like a nuisance to like, get up and take the pictures, but like later on, like when we look back at these and compare, like they are gonna be so important. So that was a really good point that you hit on there.
Yeah, whenever clients like do their initial like progress picture check-ins and they're like in bad lighting and like they're like grainy, they're like, no, let's redo these and get these dialed in, because like it is so important. they don't know that yet because it's the first time doing it potentially, but it's like, you're going to want these to be visible and clear so we can look at these 2 years from now and see like what 24 months of growing is really done.
Absolutely.
Another question we had for you from one of the listeners is biggest training mistakes you've made and what you've learned from those and how you've adapted.
Yeah. So I used to be like the biggest ego lifter ever. I think for two reasons. Like I'm super competitive, so I was like, oh, like I want to push these numbers, and then also like I did do like powerlifting for a little bit too. So I just, like got very like numbers focused. So like, oh my gosh, like I was actually looking the other day back at like some of my really old training videos. There was one where I was like bench pressing. I think it was, like around like 200 pounds, but like my butt was like 2 feet off of the bench, and I was like, what was I doing? You know what I mean? So I think that early in my career, like I was like such an ego lifter. It's like, oh my gosh, like I'm cringing at myself. But like as I have advanced and I've like worked more with Cliff, like I have learned truly like how much more important and beneficial it is for your physique to actually like have good form and just kind of like keep form standardized so that you can actually like track your progress. And again, like this is bodybuilding. Like it doesn't matter like how much weight you're pressing if you're, not pressing it with like the proper muscles that we're trying to hit. And actually like had like some weak points that like we really needed to come up, and like they just like weren't coming up. And then once I was able to like, I finally like, brought the weight down and worked on like having good form. It's like, oh, like, okay, like my biceps are like starting to like come up instead I'm like swinging, my dumbbells using my shoulders. No wonder my biceps were small. So I would say definitely the ego lifting and just trying to push the weight as opposed to just standardizing form and making sure that I'm like targeting the muscle that I actually want to work.
Yeah, that's a great point. Standardization of form and kind of getting away from the logbook sometimes is really important. For some of my athletes, I don't prescribe like specific loads anymore, because what I was finding myself is that I would prescribe a certain weight for them, and then when they would send me some form review footage of the movement, I would notice that like we were having to dictate the rep range and the tempo and the quality of the execution of the lift just to try to meet like a load that they thought I wanted them specifically to hit, or they felt like they let me down. And I was like, I need to kind of reinvent the wheel on how we're approaching this and kind of dial things back and get things kind of aligned with how I want them done. Because I think when we get too focused on like beating a rep range or a number in our logbook, then we can kind of take away from the true intent of like bodybuilding, right? It's not, you made a good point. It's not powerlifting, it's bodybuilding. So like how big can I get these muscles, right? Like how can I manipulate my physique to fit the criteria of the category I'm trying to compete in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there was a time where like even Cliff told me, he was like, we need to like step away from the logbook. Like there was like a period where like I was not tracking my weights because like I was so just like focused on like pushing the numbers, and like I kept, my form like kept going off. And I think that again, like I wouldn't recommend that for everyone, but at that point in time, that was exactly what I needed to just like step away from that. And now I can like go back to tracking my numbers, and it's nice to have like a baseline of where you're at. But yeah, sometimes like just taking the logbook away when like you are so numbers focused can actually be beneficial, especially too like when you're in prep, and obviously like you do get to a point where strength decreases. Like I even like my like the last like 4 or 5 weeks of my prep, when I was like prepping for like the last show where I got my pro card, like I didn't really keep track of like my like top numbers because I wasn't lifting as heavy, and it started to stress me out. And I'm like, I just need to like step away from that. Like I'm just gonna like lift and do my thing. And I think sometimes even like stepping away from the logbook can be good for a period of time, depending on what you're struggling with and what your goal is.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that's like some of the psychology that goes into the coaching. Some athletes maybe need the logbook, and some they need to be coached to be more intuitive with lifting. And that's like kind of the beauty of coaching, right? There's different ways to coach people. Some people are very logbook driven. Some people need to kind of be pulled back away from that and need to be more intuitive training. And there's not a one-size-fits-all approach for that. But at the end of the day, it's like if the intent behind your training is where it needs to be, and like the structure of your training and your foundation with your sleep, your training, your diet, and if all those things are aligned, like long term, you're going to make the progress you're going to make. And on the bar is kind of irrelevant when the intent's where it needs to be.
Yeah, Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of coaching is like very like individualized, and it could be different from person to person. And it could be different for one person depending on what stage they're at, you know, and it just takes a good coach to kind of like read that and assess it and like give the client what they need for wherever they're at in their journey.
Yeah, I think being able to meet the client where they're at and being able to assess, like, all right, does this person need a little more guidance here, a little more push, or do they need to be kind of, do we need to pull the handbrake on them and dial them back a little bit and get them away from the walkway? It's a good thing to be able to identify because it can truly make or break your progress when it comes to like the training side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I got one more for you. So if you weren't to do bodybuilding and you were to pursue a new like hobby, what would it be besides bodybuilding? Something competitive.
Oh, that is actually like such a good question. It would definitely be something like fitness related. I would say probably like I would go back to powerlifting. Like again, like I did love powerlifting. The only reason that like, and I'm glad that it worked out this way because I love bodybuilding, but powerlifting was definitely very difficult on my joints. But you know, I loved being able to just like have like those objective numbers to chase. And I don't even know if I mentioned this, but I'm pretty sure I still hold the Michigan State bench press record. I checked like a year ago and I still had it then, but it could have been broken by now. But I was also very good at powerlifting. And I think that, you know, if I didn't have the injuries that I've had over the course of the years, that would have been another really good opportunity for me as well. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Where can everybody find you on Instagram? Let's get you connected. Let's get everybody connected with you. Where can everybody find you on like Instagram, social medias?
Yeah, so my Instagram is dr.michaela_p. That's like the main social media that I use. My TikTok, I think, is just at Michaela Paramaki, but my TikTok is like dead. I barely post on it anymore, so don't bother following me. But yeah, Instagram's the main way to find me right now. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, hey, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. I know the listeners will get a lot out of this conversation, and we'll be pulling for you at the Yorton. So look forward to following your journey. Stay in touch, and we'll see the Yorton Cup in what's it like 7-8 weeks away?
Yeah, like 8. I think it's 8 weeks away. It's coming up. I'm so excited.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you could leave the listeners with one last comment of motivation, what would it be?
My biggest motto, at least right now at this point in my life, is if it's worth pursuing, pursue it wholeheartedly. So, you know, like bodybuilding is like truly like my passion, and just, you know, if you truly love it, like just go all in and, you know, you won't regret it. So
Love it. Love it. Great way to be. All right. Last one. What is your post Yorton cheat meal going to be?
oh my gosh, I haven't even thought that far ahead. I'm like just so like focused on my like I've turned off like all of like the like food things on Instagram, so I'm not even like looking at food right now. I would have to say either pizza or sushi. Like either one of those. Like those are, you can't go wrong with either.
That's always my go-to as well. Well, good answer. That's a good sign. Good answer. All right. Well, thanks again. This will go up on Tuesday, guys. So everyone that tuned in, appreciate it. And thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have you on again next year.
Cool.